Hi, I'm Ted Kofi, and I think today's quite an auspicious day because it's the 1st of October. Happens to be the 60th anniversary of Nigeria's independence. It's also in the UK, the start of Black History Month. Now, I've just watched the most extraordinary video interview given by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to the Evening Standard. And there were a couple of outstanding lines that kind of leapt out at me from this video. He was launching something called the Trailblazers campaign in support of Black History Month and against the onward stride of structural racism in the UK. Harry said that you can only be what you can see. And he went on to say that for him, Black History Month is about awareness, education, and teaching. Two things that are quite closely connected to my mind, because people can only ideate what they've been taught, what they have learned. And without going into the nits and the grits of school curricula and so on, the very most obvious thing of all about the mindset that's created in the United Kingdom, which, if you like, mitigates against the end of structural racism, is that people don't know the history of people of African origin. They just don't know it. So whereas I know about Crécy, Poitiers and Agincourt, the wars of the Tudors, the First and Second World Wars, most of which were driven by political events in Europe, most people in Europe haven't got a clue, not only about the origins of African civilizations, but perhaps more crucially, what their countries did in Africa in relation to people of African origin, and did for 500 years or so. So you get this rather warped, twisted narrative, which strips out white history from black history, sets up white history as the real history, and black history as a kind of minor subtext of world history. Whereas the actual truth is all our histories are inextricably intertwined. So to know only one part of that history is to know half of who and what you are. So I felt that this video was really powerful because it was perhaps, they talk about noblesse oblige, to whom much is given, much is expected. It was perhaps the best and only positive application of white privilege, which Harry obviously has in spades on account of his heritage and his birthright, but also class privilege for ditto reasons. Now, while Harry was speaking, one of the things he mentioned was that he was talking about stuff that he thought he knew, but which, through his relationship, presumably with Meghan Markle, through the experiences he's had with the pushback from people's reactions to his relationship to his wife, he's become aware of many more issues. And so he says, Black History Month really is a matter of awareness, becoming aware of stuff, education and teaching. Like I said, I'm not going to go into the minutiae of educational curricula and that sort of thing. That for another occasion. But I am going to talk principally about one thing, which is dialogue. We have a situation which right now maintains and underwrites structural racism. That situation is driven on account in part of the histories people have been taught, on account in part of the narratives they've been raised to uphold, that black voices, voices of people of African origin, are muted. They are actively censored from social expression. And they're censored not in any clear, overt, legally underscored way. I mean, there's freedom of speech. That's why so many people died in World War II, to buy this freedom of speech. But socially, it's censored because white society, and by which I would say the vast majority of white people that I know, are incredibly defensive when it comes to talking of race. Now, as whether it's in an office, whether it's in a social situation, whether it's in a public situation, people of African origin tend to be in the minority. You can have this tyranny of the majority, which cannot be justified by nationality alone, because human rights are completely independent of what country you come from, what class you occupy, what ethnicity you hold. Human rights are inalienable rights which devolve to anybody of genus Homo sapiens, I would say, for anything with life. So when it comes to this suppression of dialogue, one of the things that results most of the time is that people of African origin are dealt with in one way. By suppressing the dialogue, they are patronized constantly. And if you ask me for one of the main inputs into systemic racism, it is to put the victim of that racism in a position that they cannot share or talk about their lived experience. You're not making anything up. You're not reading anything. You're not talking about stuff you read in a book. I'm talking about the daily lived experience of people of African origin. That is what is muted. That is what is censored. And as long as it's censored on a personal level, it doesn't matter what laws you pass. If people are being wronged or people are having experiences which they can't talk about without being censured socially, without being sent into Coventry for it, without putting at risk the opportunity for their promotion or recruitment or employment, you actually don't even need systemic racism. The system itself will be racist. So that's the point. I hope that through Black History Month, through the various activities that happen, more and more people will talk about this muting of PAO voices, people of African origin, that means. More and more people will address the fact that in any public space, when PAO, people of African origin, are speaking to other groups, they are subtly but very, very really muted in their voices, in the experiences. Now, if you don't have access to my experience, how could you possibly learn? I believe that's what Sussex Harry was saying when he said, you can only be what you can see. You can only understand and react to what you hear. And as long as by subtle and unsubtle means, white society suppresses the voices of people of African origin, they will never learn. Flip it the other way round. What it's saying is we will always be where we are today. The last point I'll make is about patronization. If on account of the narratives people have learned, they expect to be pandered to, if on account of the values they've been taught to uphold, they expect to be viewed as the alpha and the omega, the ultimate curators of what is real, then we really are in a very, very difficult place. That is how you will get men of experience like myself, professional and social, and lived, being attempted to be patronized by young white people, a fraction of my age, with a fraction of my worldview, with a fraction of my world travel, with a fraction purely because of the dynamics of time, my experience in life. And that, I would say, this Black History Month is something that all white society needs to become aware of. And on the other side, I would ask people of African origin to speak to this point, because if we want change, people, whatever Harry said, we must remember people can only be what they can see, hear, and learn. Happy Black History Month.